All right, we are going to do some more practice problems for tomorrow's test. It says the distance on a map between the entrance of a park and a waterfall inside the park is 4.5 inches. What is the actual distance from the entrance of the park to the waterfall? All right, this is a beautiful scale drawing, so I'm going to do drawing over actual. I'm going to look at my scale that they give me. I'm going to say, okay, 3 inches on the drawing is 2.5 miles on the actual. Well, I'd say to myself it might be easier for me to work with if I had some sort of a quote-unquote unit rate. So if I knew, if I looked at this, if I knew how many miles 1 inch was, I might find that helpful. So I'm going to set up an equivalent ratio. I'm going to do 3 divided by 3 gets me to 1. If I'm going to divide the top by 3, I'm going to divide the bottom by 3. So off to the side, 2.5 divided by 3. That's the same as 2 times 2 is 4, and 1 is 5 halves divided by 3 over 1. You do your little skip, flip, and multiply. 5 halves times 1 over 3. That will give me 5/6. So I know that 1 inch represents 5/6 of a mile in the actual park. So I was like, all right, well, that's helpful. Now that I have my scale, that 1 inch is 5/6 of a mile. I look back at the picture, I'm like, okay, the distance they give me on the drawing is 4.5 inches. And I want to know how many miles that'll be. So I'm like, oh, it's equivalent ratio. How do I get from 1 to 4.5? I multiply by 4.5. I'm going to multiply the numerator by 4.5. I also multiply the denominator by 4.5. That's 5/6 times 4 times 2 is 8, and 1 is 9 halves. 5 times 9 is 45. 6 times 2 is 12. That's 45/12 of a mile. But then I say to myself, okay, I'm not going to leave it in that format. First of all, it's hard to decipher what is 45/12. Secondly, normally when it's an improper, we convert it back to a mixed number. So 45/12, how many times does 12 go into 45? Well, 12 goes into 45 3 times. That gets me to 36 with 9 left over. So I'll write 9/12. So it's 3 9/12 of a mile. And that's our final answer for that one. So if you're hiking from the entrance to the waterfall, you'll be hiking 3 9/12 of a mile, almost 4 miles. Let's find the scale factor of a model container if the scale is 1 inch is 7 feet. Well, as soon as I see scale factor, I say to myself, okay, my units must agree. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do my drawing over actual. They give me 1 inch is 7 feet. I was like, oh, I have to convert the 7 feet into inches because my units must agree. How do I convert 7 feet into inches? Well, I know I have 7 rulers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rulers because each ruler is a foot. How many inches on each of those rulers? Well, there's 12 inches on each of those rulers. So then I say to myself, how do I convert those 7 feet, or if I had 7 rulers lined up, each ruler is a foot, how do I convert that to inches? Oh, I do 7 times 12. And what's 7 times 12? Pick up your calculator if you need. I have a guess, but I don't want to say it out loud in case. 7 times 12 is 84. Well, that would have been my guess. I should have said it out loud. 84 inches. So now if I look at my drawing, I know 1 inch on the drawing will represent 84 inches on the actual picture. Inches divided by inches, by inches. So then I have 1 over 84 being my scale factor. We remember the key with scale factor is units must agree. You only have to make those units agree if the word problem asks for a scale factor. Other than that, you just use the scale they give you. All right, let's take a look at this one. Over the break, your uncle and aunt ask you to help them cement the foundation of their newly purchased land and give you a top view blueprint of the area and proposed layout. A small legend in the corner states that 4 inches of length corresponds to an actual length of 54 feet. All right, so I'm going to do drawing over actual. I know eventually with scale factor that my units must agree. So I know eventually I have to convert my feet into inches. But just to get something that might be a little bit easier to work with, I think I'll start with my drawing is 4 inches. My actual is 52 feet. I'm just going to go ahead and see what 1 inch on my drawing would be in terms of feet. So I'm going to divide numerator and denominator by 4. 52 divided by 4. You can use your calculator. If you're not a calculator kid and you like to just divide that long hand, you go ahead. But I see that 1 inch is actually 13 feet. What this is, that's our scale. Our scale 1 inch corresponds to 13 feet, but scale factor, those units must agree, so I just have to convert my 13 feet into inches. Again, I could draw 13 rulers across the page to represent 13 feet, but if I want to go 13 feet into inches, I just do 13 times 12. There's 12 inches in each foot. 13 times 12 on my calculator is 156 inches. At that point, for my scale factor, I know 1 inch is actually 156 inches on that actual. Inches divided by inches, bye-bye. 1 over 156 is your scale factor. Now here is the second part of this question, and the reason I put this second part on was to show you don't necessarily have to use that scale factor unless the question asks for it. And in part B, they ask us to find the actual dimensions in feet. So I say to myself, why would I ever use the scale factor? Why don't I just use the scale they give me? I do drawing over actual. 4 inches is 52 feet. You remember from the last slide, I broke that down, dividing top and bottom by 4, and I found that 1 inch was actually 13 feet. I'm going to use that scale. And why do I want to use that scale and not use that scale factor that they just talked about? Because they want my answer in feet. So I'm going to use a ratio that involves feet. So if 1 inch is 13 feet, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this my width. I'm going to look at my width first. They want dimensions. They want the width and the length. So I say, okay, I know on the drawing the width is 11 inches. I don't know how many feet that is, but I just use my scale and set up an equivalent ratio. How do I get from 1 to 11? Oh, 1 times 11 is 11. That means I need to go ahead and multiply 13 by 11. And what is 13 times 11? 13 times 11 is 143. So I know the width of my actual is 143 feet. Please remember to label your answer in feet if they're asking for it in feet. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my length. I know that 1 inch on the drawing is 13 feet on the actual. And I say, oh, hey, the length is 13 inches. I wonder how many feet that is. I just take a look at my numerator. How do I get from 1 to 13? Oh, it's an equivalent ratio. I simply multiply 1 by 13. I'm going to multiply the numerator by 13. I'm also going to multiply that denominator by 13. 13 times 13 is 169. That tells me the actual length is 169 feet. And there you have it. There's your dimensions of the actual. For this question, I'm going to let you know the answer, and I'm going to tell you if you would like to see the solution. The solution is actually on the first video I made. So 81.2 feet, I believe, is the perimeter of Mr. Taylor's actual lawn. If you'd like to see the step-by-step solution, just refer back to the first video I created, posted on the website and on YouTube, that has a step-by-step solution for the test tomorrow. Also, if you watch these videos, please say I watched the video at the top of tomorrow's test, and you will earn a bonus point. Try to have a good night. Take care. See you tomorrow.